How's it going, PengPiratesTCG crew? It's Adrian and we're back with another video. So since OP3 is coming out in just about a month now, I thought it would be a great time to start talking about it, making, gameplay videos and also guide videos for you guys. And I thought a great way to, introduce us to this new meta is by going over all of the new cards and, all the important cards from the set. But then when I started making the video, I realized that it's a lot of information, especially since I want to go very in depth with some of these strategies and these interactions. So I decided to break this up into different parts. Today we're going to be talking about all of the different red support, which I think is really important because red is going to be the most prominent color in the meta, and not only in the way that we're seeing right now, but red actually gets so much better in OP3 with all the new support that comes out. So it's really important that we talk about it. Even if you're not planning on playing the deck, it's really important to understand what makes red so menacing in OP3 and the new tools that they get to play around with. So with that being said, why don't we start off with talking about our new red leader, Ace. So Ace is going to be the new singular red leader that is coming out from this set, but he is an awesome card nonetheless. His leader skill is extremely versatile, which is going to give him some staying power past OP3, I think. It just reads, whenever Ace is being attacked or is attacking, you can choose to discard up to any number of events and stages, and then he's going to gain plus 1000 power for each event or stage that you discard that way. I think the most common way or the most applicable way to use this is, near the end of the game. If you've ever, been frustrated that you don't have enough Dawn to use, the counter events are in your hand, or maybe you have like a jet pistol that you got off of life that isn't the counter that you needed. Ace kind of solves that because, if you're being swung at for game and you need that extra plus 1000 or plus 2000 in your hand, and we're going to see there's a lot more event support in this game for red, which makes this leader skill super relevant. And then on the flip side, this also works when you're attacking. So let's say that you need to swing someone for game, but you don't have enough Dawn to allocate, for that guaranteed swing. You can now discard event cards and stage cards in your hand to get plus 1000. So in that case, Ace's leader skill now becomes a very scary late game option where you don't need to just calculate how much damage he could do to you with the amount of Dawn that he has, but now you have to account also for how many cards he has in hand. How many events has he searched? How many events has he not played yet? Do I think he has like stages in his hand even? And that's another thing too, is like usually you don't like to have multiple stages in your hand, but now at least they actually do something, right? They could give you plus 1000 power if you draw multiple stages. And this might make it a little bit trickier in the endgame because if you are attacking Ace, you now have to worry about those event cards being plus 1000 power, which might actually make it easier if you're tracking his searches. But the real trouble is going to be calculating how much math he has for a lethal, because if you're trying to calculate, does this Ace player have game on me, you not only have to worry about the Dawn he has to work with and his characters on board, you also have to worry about, does he have events in hand that he can use to discard to swing me for game with his leader? So that's when you have to be tracking, what events he's searching, what events he's used out of the ones he's searched, and then it's just ultimately going to be more of a gamble in the end game because you don't necessarily know 100% of the info. So instead of a for sure like, yes, he 100% can't kill me this turn, it's like, maybe he can't kill me if he doesn't have a certain amount of events in hand, which is going to make calculating those lethals a lot trickier for you on the defending side. And since we're on the topic of Ace, let's go ahead and talk about what Ace specific support there is before we get into, the generic red support that they get in this format. So of course, Ace is going to get an archetype searcher actually for red events. Striker is a 1-cost stage with the effect of, if you rest 2 Dawn and this stage, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and grab an event, and then of course bottom deck the rest of the cards in any order. And this is really cool for decks that want to play the Striker variant because it kind of makes Ace a little bit of a toolbox deck. You can run things like Round Table, you could run things like Jet Pistol, the Ace specific events that we're going to be talking about, counter events and everything like that. So there's a lot of versatility that you can search out with this card. And on top of that, this effect is on a stage, which is something that we really haven't seen before. We've seen it a little bit with Impel Down in OP2, but Impel Down has like a very hefty cost and it only searches a limited number of cards. This is a full-on look at the top 5 cards of your deck, only for 2 Dawn. So even if you don't quite find the card that you need for the turn or, the next turn, you're still pretty much paying 2 Dawn to draw a card, which is absolutely insane in terms of card advantage, especially in red where most of your cards are going to go 1 for 1. And on top of all of this, it's also on a stage, which makes it very unique. Searchers like this are usually attached to, one-time bodies where they're on play effects, or they're attached to a really like chumpy, low power body that's going to rest itself so it gets attacked. But in this case, because Striker is a stage, it can't actually be interacted with if you're not playing, black. So this card is going to stick. You're pretty much going to pay 2 Dawn to draw a card every single turn it's out, and it's going to really help you curve out and find the tools that you need. So it is a great card to play in Ace if you want to, and it's also a great card to play at 4 for consistency, because at the very worst, it is a 1k counter, right? So Ace actually does get a good number of different events this format. Some of them are used by other decks, so we'll talk about them later, but right now let's talk about the 2 that are specifically used in the Ace deck. So the first one I wanted to talk about is Flame Emperor, and this is only going to work if your leader is Ace. But Flame Emperor is just a 7-cost event, so it's pretty expensive, but it's going to KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 8,000 power or less, and then it's going to give your leader double attack as well as 3,000 power during this turn. So in Ace's case, he's going to go up to 8,000 power for that swing, and this card is honestly really amazing. It's going to get rid of your opponent's power plays, especially if they're playing green. Odin will get instantly wiped off the field, and then you're left with a leader that is at 8,000 and also has double attack, which can potentially be really threatening. And keep in mind, this effect is also being played in red, where you have a lot of like minus power effects. I think the most common way right now is using Otama. So if you use Otama on top of this, you're now KOing Mihawks, you're KOing Ninebeard. And this is really cool to have in a red deck, because you have this early game that you could kind of fall back on, and then in the end game, when your opponent is making those big power plays, you could then respond with a Flame Emperor in the mid game or late game, and then put a lot of pressure on their life. So all in all, this card is just amazing. It can be searched out with Striker, and then of course, if you don't need it in the moment, you could always discard it to gain that plus 1,000 power. Moving on to another more Ace specific event, the requirement is a little bit lighter in that your leader just has to be a Whitebeard Pirates card, but I feel like this card is really applicable in Ace. So Crossfire is a 2-cost event that could be used during the main phase or the counter phase, and all it's going to do is give one of your opponent's characters minus 4,000 power during this turn. And this counter event is really cool because obviously you can use it during your main phase as well, which is something that we haven't really seen before. That means you could combo it if there's something big on the board that you want to get rid of, but you could also combo this with Flame Emperor to instantly take out, 12k attackers like 10-cost Kaido or Kuzan. So again, this is just a very versatile card to use. It also has the added effect that that character gets minus 4,000 power during the turn. So against cards that could restand themselves like Odin, like Basil Hawkins, this is going to be super important because you're not only giving it minus 4,000 power during the battle, it actually has to deal with being at minus 4,000 power for the entire turn. And then of course, this card has a really cool trigger effect where you're going to activate its main effect. This card could actually save you a hit or two because you trigger it off life, you give a character that's about to swing minus 4,000 power, and then maybe it saves you a counter, maybe it even saves you the game. So all in all, this card, again, is just very versatile to use in Ace. It can be searched out with Striker, comboed with Flame Emperor, and a lot of other different cards. But yeah, these 3 cards are going to be very common to see in the Ace deck. But with that being said, let's get into the more generic support that is going to support Ace still, but also supports cards like Zoro and Whitebeard. So before we talk about any other card, we have to talk about Izo. Izo is the new 1-cost searcher for this set, but this time you're going to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and search a Whitebeard Pirates type card. And this is going to completely shift the meta for red because Izo is going to be played in every red deck pretty much. I'm not going to spend too much time, getting into how good this card is. I'm just going to show you what cards it searches out, and then it'll become very clear why this card is played in pretty much every red deck right now. So another new busted Whitebeard character that's coming out is going to be Marco. Marco is a 5-cost 6k with plus 1,000 counter power. He also has the added effect of on play only during your turn. He can knock out a character with 3,000 power or less. So he's basically another Vista type character, but he also has the added effect of on KO, you can trash an event card from your hand to bring him back from the trash rested. And if this effect looks a little bit familiar, it is almost the same effect that we have for the 4-cost Marco, except it doesn't have a life restriction. On top of that, it also uses a different card. So instead of discarding a Whitebeard Pirates card, you have to discard an event card. But that's still incredibly generic, and there are a ton of event cards that red runs that you might not necessarily want to play. So this card ends up being one of the most versatile and sticky cards, which is super annoying to have in a red deck, especially for decks like Zoro and Whitebeard, where you want to be clearing their board. And he's going to be especially annoying in Ace, where they just have a ton of event cards in their deck, and they're also searching more event cards with Striker. This is one of the best cards because of how sticky it is on the board. The only real way to efficiently get rid of it is to bounce it or bottom deck it. so this card is going to end up being one of the most annoying cards in terms of how much versatility and attack power it has. Moving on to another Whitebeard Pirates type card that red is getting. This is mainly going to be run in Zoro, but we have Marshall D. Teach. Teach is a 4-cost 6k with the effect of when attacking, you can trash one character card you have in play with a power of 4,000 or more, then draw a card. And then on top of that, Teach is also going to gain plus 1000 power during the battle. And this is honestly one of my favorite cards in terms of flavor. You know, if you know about the One Piece lore, you know about what Teach's character does. But in terms of Zoro, this card is really great because you get to boost a lot of your chumpy attackers up to plus 5,000 anyway to swing with them. And since you already know that they're probably going to die anyway, what you could do is after you've already attacked with something like a Nami or an Izo or something like that, you could then attack with Teach, and you don't even have to attach a Dawn to him to start swinging magic numbers, right? Because Zoro is going to boost Teach up to 7k already, and then Teach is going to boost himself up to 1000 for 8k, so he's really good into Whitebeard. And this card is so amazing because you already know that the chumpy character is probably already going to get swung at and die. You might as well draw a card and gain an upside from it. So with Teach giving you that card advantage, you know, in the middle of the game, it's really going to help you out in the mid to late game because you're swinging for big numbers, and then you're also recurring some resources on top of that. But yeah, there's not a lot to say about this card. I think it speaks for itself, honestly, and being at that 6k stat line is a little bit more annoying to deal with because it's going to be easier to protect. And yeah, we're kind of just moving into a new meta where Zoro has these chumpy attackers, but now you have a little bit more of a strong mid game as well. All right, so going kind of backwards and talking about these chumpy attackers, we have one of the best chumpy attackers in the game right now in the form of Buggy. He is a 1-cost 3k with no counter. He also has the effect that he can't be KO'd when battling against slash attribute characters and leaders. So if your opponent, you know, has a Vista out, or if they're playing Zoro, they actually cannot swing into Buggy. They will lose their attack. But then on top of this, he also has the on-play effect of you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then you're going to reveal one red event from it, bottom deck the rest in any order. And this is another instance where I don't think I have to really talk about how good this card is. In Zoro, this card is amazing because you get to search out something like a Jet Pistol or a Rad Beam, and then on top of that, if you're playing this in the early game, you have a 3k body on the board, so you only have to attach one more Dawn with the Zoro effect to get to that 5k. But then also you can imagine this card is very good with Ace because he gives you that extra event search for only one Dawn, and the fact that he has that premium stat line of 1 drop 3k is super important because it actually doesn't matter that he doesn't have a 1k counter, because most of the time you are going to find some sort of counter event that's going to give you, you know, like plus 4,000 if it's Rad Beam, plus 3,000 if it's Guard Point. And yeah, the versatility of this card is just insane. And in Zoro, he's probably the best because, again, he has that premium stat line to be an attacker. And last but not least, we do have another Ace event that comes out in this format, but it doesn't have a leader restriction, so it's incredibly generic to red. Fire Fist is just a 3-cost event with the main effect of you can discard one event from your hand, and then that's going to allow you to KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 5,000 power or less, and then also one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. And I feel like a broken record saying this, but I don't think I need to express how busted this card is. A card that removes multiple things off the board is something that is very rare in this game. I think the only cards that have this right now are 7-cost King and 10-cost Kaido, and both of those cards have huge downsides to them in terms of Dawn, and they're not too flexible, right? 10-cost Kaido is going to wipe everything off the board, including yours. Fire Fist is incredibly versatile, and the action of discarding one event card is actually not that bad. There are a lot of red events that are very situational, so getting to discard one that you might not use within the turn or within the next few turns, and it gives red the access to just control the board in the mid game, which we've never seen before. And this is super important because it's covering up a huge weakness that decks like Zoro had, where they would kind of exhaust their board swinging at you. They were very easy to get rid of because since they're so low attack, everything on your board can usually swing into it successfully. But now they can pretty much full swing into you and then still have enough Dawn to Fire Fist. So maybe they clear your entire board and then leave you having to deal with like 4 or 5 attackers. And in scenarios like that, it just covers up so many weaknesses for red that I honestly think it's a huge problem in this format. But yeah, there's nothing we can really do about it now except appreciate how busted this card is, I guess. And then on top of all of this, it also has a trigger effect where it's going to be able to KO something with 5,000 power or less, so it's pretty much like a mini jet pistol trigger, so it's just another red trigger event to be careful of. But yeah, with that, we've gone over pretty much every meta-relevant red card coming out in OP3. What do you guys think about the new cards? Let me know in the comments down below. The next video will probably be around blue and green, so be on the lookout for that. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you guys like this content. And then of course, thank you guys for watching. No matter what you're doing, whether you're in school or you're working on your career, I wish you good luck on them, and I'll see you on the next one.